Afternoon everyone. Today I am going to be processing plums and peaches. So on the most recent monthly shopping trip, which I did earlier in the week, I managed to get 2 boxes of plums for $10. They're all very ripe and need to be processed pretty quickly. So plums can be canned in their own juices or in a sugar syrup or however you'd like. They don't need any extra acid. They can be water bath canned as is. But I intend to make some plum barbecue sauce as well. So I'm going to cut them all up and get moving on them, see how much I've got as to what I make out of them. And then I will probably just can most of the rest of them in jars as is, and they can be used to make more sauces later, or they can be used in smoothies or in cobblers, fruit pies, anything like that. So if they're just a plain jar of plum pieces in some liquid, they can be used, they're going to be versatile, they're going to be able to be used for many different things whenever I want to pull them out to use them. So I think that's the best way to go about it, is to make the plum barbecue sauce because I really want to do that, but also to just can the rest of them up before they go bad into jars as is, and then use them as relevant when we need to later. At least they're on the shelf then and able to be used. I reckon they'd probably make a really nice sorbet or ice cream as well, and it can always make jams out of them later too. I can always decant them into something else and add a bit of the Pomona's pectin and calcium water and then turn them into a jam for something later, potentially mix through the yogurts as flavourings, all that sort of thing. So I'm going to just get started cutting and pitting them all and getting them all in a pot, and I'm going to pack them hot. So I'm going to put them in a pot with just a tiny bit of water in the bottom so nothing burns, maybe a sprinkle of sugar on top, and just reduce them very slightly before packing the jars so that we make the most of the jars and there's no great big masses of liquid with floating fruit. We want to make sure the jars are as full as possible so that we're using less jars for the quantity of produce. So let's get started with that. The other thing I'm going to do is peach lemonade concentrate, a bit like the strawberry lemonade concentrate and cordial type thing, to use with iced tea or with the soda water. So I've got some peaches there to cut up and get started on the stove as well with that. Okay, so I managed to stuff up somehow, and I didn't hit record when I first started doing these. So what I did have was I filled this whole box with plums, which is probably a quarter of what's in the fridge, and a lot of them are really squishy, so let's see if we get this in focus. They're very, very soft, especially around the tops, so they need to be processed pretty quick. So the plan is to just cut them all up and stick them in the pot and then decide what I'm going to use for what. So I've just been cutting them up, putting the pits aside. These are the only 3 out of that whole lot that I've done so far, half this amount, it's probably this amount already, that are a little too far gone for me to use, and I've got this pot going for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep on going, get this pot filled up. I might pull some aside to see how much I need for the plum barbecue sauce. I'm only going to make a single batch of that because I haven't made it before, so I want to make sure that it tastes alright. So it uses about 2 kilos. So I'm going to pull out, get all these cut up, and then pull out 2 kilos, see how much is left in the pot, and then decide if I need to do some more right now or if I hold off and do some more soon. So yeah, so all I'm doing is I'm cutting them. If you want them in nice precise slices, your best bet is to cut them twice into quarters. Let's see if I can put this to focus, into quarters like that, and then you just take each piece off. Now these are very ripe, so most of the time I'm just squishing the flesh off the pit, which is fine. I'm not concerned about the shape of it, even in the jars that I'm going to can with pieces. It doesn't really worry me. So I'm just sort of, the ones that are easy to pull off in halves, so just pull off in halves, just take the seed out and throw it in. So the sauces, they all get pureed up anyway, but yeah, if you were wanting to can them and you wanted them to look nice in the jars, then cutting them into quarters is probably the best. And then you take each from the bottom of the plum. I find the easiest place, you just squeeze each slice off. Some come away easier than others, but you end up with fairly uniform quarter slices if you do it that way. You just pinch them off the peel, off the pip, and you have uniform sort of segments. But I'm not overly concerned, so I'm just doing it quickly and easily and getting off whatever I can, putting all the flesh in the pot and going from there. Alright, tidied up a little bit. So this is what I got out of that box full, and as I said, I think that's around about a quarter of what's in the fridge. So this is a full pot that I got out of that, which is pretty neat. So now I'm going to measure out 4 pounds or 2-ish kilos of these into a different pot so I can make the barbecue sauce with it. And then I probably grab some more and top the pot up once I take it out. I don't know how much 2 kilos is, so I'm going to see how much 2 kilos is first and then see what's left in the pot. So let me grab another pot, scales here, another pot here. Now the recipe calls for 4 pounds. I looked at a whole bunch of recipes. I've sort of mixed and matched what I felt would work for what we've got here and what I like the taste of, but 4 pounds seemed to be a pretty solid amount of the fruit that they were going to use. So let's use the scales here and see how much 4 pounds ends up being. Maybe more than this pot size. Maybe not. So that's 4 pounds worth. So this pot probably be a good size to do the barbecue sauce in, because there's not too much else that goes in it because the plums cook down. So, but what I might do is grab another bowl full of plums to top up the other pot, because if I'm going to run it and can it, I may as well do a whole load rather than just a half-hearted pot full. So I'm going to wash my hands, grab all the stuff out that I need for this, and then I'll come back. Alright, so we've got 4 pounds of plums here. Now, the kids are in the pool again, which is going to make my afternoon interesting, but anyway. So we've got 4 pounds of plums. Then it asks for a cup of onion, so I cut up a cup of onion, so that's going in. It wanted a clove of garlic, so that's one of the homegrown garlics there. It asked for a cup of raw sugar. This is another reason I only do a single batch, is because this has a lot of sugar in it. I don't know if it's going to need that much sugar for our tastes, but I'll make it 2 recipe to start with. So it was a cup of raw sugar, and then it has a cup and a half of brown sugar. Now I'd run out of brown sugar, so I just made some up in my Thermomix. So we've got fresh brown sugar there. And do cup and a half brown sugar. Alrighty, then it's got a tablespoon of mustard powder. Again, I didn't have any mustard powder, so I've just ground up some mustard seeds in my Tri-Best. So it wants a tablespoon of that, a tablespoon of mustard powder, and then 2 tablespoons of powdered ginger. 1, 2, and a tablespoon of salt. So, a tablespoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of red pepper flakes. I didn't have red pepper flakes, but I did have some dried chilies, so I've just cut some of them up, and I'm just going to put 1 in because we're not real big on spice. So 1 teaspoon of that, and then 1 cup of apple cider vinegar. So I've just got the Kirkland brand at the moment, and add a cup of that. So there we go. So that's all the ingredients, and I'm just going to stick it on the stove and keep moving it around till it heats through so it won't burn, and then I'm just going to cook it down till it's the consistency that we're after. Alright, so it's been on the stove for about 15 minutes and all the juice, well, a whole lot of juice has come out of the plums and stuff, so now I'm going to give it a little bit of a immersion blend to try and break it up, because we want it smooth in the end, and we want all the skins blended in and the onion blended in as well. Alright, there we go. So it's all mostly smooth. I'll probably give it one more blitz when it cooks down a little bit. So now I'm just going to keep on simmering it. I think it'd probably take an hour, 90 minutes really to thicken. We want it nice and thick. The consistency that we wanted as sauce is what we wanted in the pot before we put it in the jars. So we're just going to keep on cooking it and let it go. Alrighty, I topped up my pot of just plain plums, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to sprinkle 1/4 cup of sugar over the top and 1/2 cup of water so that there's a little bit of liquid in the bottom so it doesn't burn. Now, sugar is not necessary for canning plums. You do not have to add sugar. The sugar, it's not for safety purposes at all. It's purely for flavour. The thing with sugar is though that it helps the fruit retain its colour as well. So by adding just a little bit of sugar, it will help keep the nice bright vibrancy of the fruit as well. So that 1/4 cup of sugar is next to nothing in there, but it should be enough to help with boost the colours when it's in the jars. So 1/4 cup on there, just going to add 1/2 cup of water to got any in my jug? Nope, I have to grab some water. Alright, 1/2 cup of water just to put some liquid on the bottom for when I put it on the heat, and all I'm going to do is warm it through for 10 minutes till it just slightly softens and heats through, and while it's doing that I'm going to go and collect all my jars up ready to put it in the jars. Right, so it's been on the stove for maybe 15 minutes and it's softened up the fruit and let out all its juices, so that's all I wanted it to do. And now I'm going to get it in the jars. I'm going to use 27s today just because that's what I've got convenient, and I'm not sure how many jars it's going to fill. We'll just have to wait and see. Alright, so I'm just going to fill the jars. I'm just going to grab the solids first and fill the jars with the solids, and then I'll put the liquid in afterwards, whatever's left, to top up the jars so that they are full, and we'll see how many we get out of it. Now, I once again can't find my debubbling tool, so I've got the wooden back end of a spatula, which works quite well. And I'm just going to stick it down the sides 3, 4, 5 times in each jar to let everything settle, and then adjust the headspace if necessary. So, just like that, down each jar. Alright, there we go. So I got 7 jars out of that pot, which is pretty good. I'm going to clean the rims, get the lids and rings on it. And I'm fairly generous with the headspace on these jars. I find that with the 27s, because they narrow so much there, I like to do it just above the shoulder, which is probably a little more than recommended. I think 1/2 inch headspace is all that's required, and this is probably closer to 3/4 to 1. But I find that I have problems here with them siphoning if I go too full because of the shape of the jars, and this is still within safe. So they look lovely. They have all the pieces of fruit in there. It's a lovely colour, and most of the juice is from the fruit itself, which is great. So I will get the water boiling in the canner, because this is warm jars, warm liquid, so we want the water in the canner to be at least warm. So it's all the same temperature, no shock from hitting different temperatures, and I'll get the rims cleaned up, lids and clips put on. Alright, once again, white vinegar, clean the rims really thoroughly, get any sugar or fruit off the edges. Remember that with Fowler's jars, the rubber goes into this little divot around the outside edge, so make sure to give that a clean as well. Rings on. Alright, I like to give the rings a quick wipe with the vinegar as well, just in case I had anything on my hands while I was doing it. Again, probably overkill, but I just feel more comfortable doing it, so. Lids on top. I also give them a quick wipe out. Kitchen is outside, we have a lot of dust and things like that, so I just like to be thorough when I'm canning. There you go. And then clips on. Now I choose to double clip my jars. Not everyone does. My clips are also rusty looking and stuff. It doesn't affect the use. It just doesn't look real great and tends to discolor the stainless steel lids, but it's very humid here. We have limited water for me to bother about cleaning things that don't need cleaning for usability. They just need cleaning because they would look better. So I just leave them as is. I let them air dry. I give them a clean every now and again if I need to, but generally speaking, I just let them dry and I store them in a colander type thing like this so that they've got airflow and they're not sitting in any liquids or anything like that. And I find that works. I also have plenty of clips, so it makes sense to me to double clip. I was really lucky. There was a lady and a gentleman who lived in Toowoomba who were selling up their home to go travelling in a caravan, and advertised on Gumtree or Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace or something, that they had jars for sale, and we picked them up and we got many hundreds of jars as well as cabinets to store them in and plenty of clips and lids, and it was really a wonderful abundance of canning equipment that I wouldn't necessarily have been able to get anywhere else. So there you go, all clipped up, all lovely there. Just waiting for the water in the can at the max temperature. So these are Fowler's 27s, which are 850 ml, so between a pint and a quart. Plums are 25 minutes for a quart, under 1,000 feet. We're above 1,000 feet, so it'll be 30 minutes for a quart. So for the standard is 20 minutes for a pint, 25 minutes for quarts for plums, and I will be doing it for 30 minutes because we're above 1,000 feet. So into the can after 30 minutes and then they'll be done. Alright, the barbecue sauce is still reducing and the jars are in the canner and it hasn't quite come up to a rolling boil yet, so I haven't started the timer. So while I'm waiting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to de-pit these peaches that I've got here, and the pot that I reduced the plums in for the canning has a little bit of juice and stuff left in the bottom, so I'm going to use that pan for the peach concentrate because I may as well use that bit of fruit and juice that's left in the bottom, because the peach concentrate, again, peach, plums, all that, they don't actually need sugar for preserving for safety. It's purely for taste, so it's not going to affect the canning in any way because it's all just fruit and sugar. So I'm going to do the peach concentrate similar to the strawberry one, except that I'm going to reduce the lemon juice because I think by reducing the lemon juice I can reduce the sugar and it will still taste pretty good. I wasn't overly happy with the amount of sugar required in the strawberry one for the taste that we wanted, and I think a lot of that was just because it's got such a large amount of lemon juice in it that you end up having to compensate for that with sugar. So I want that citrus hit, less so with the peach, but more I did with the strawberry, but without having to do a whole lot of additional sugar to compensate for it. So the peach one, I may even skip the citrus. Actually, come to think of it, with the peach it probably doesn't need it. I might just add a little bit of vanilla to it, maybe a peach vanilla and a bit of sugar, and it should make a nice iced tea or soda water syrup. So being fruit, very versatile, very easy to can because it is high acid enough on its own to water bath can. So long as you're not adding other food products Like if you were adding onion or something to savoury it, then that would be an issue. But if you're sticking to fruit only, then they are high acid enough to can on their own, and therefore sugar and lemon juice and things like that are completely up to you taste-wise as to what you add. So it makes it really good for being able to decide what you want to use it for and how much sugar and you prefer in there. I'm not real keen on canning my fruit in water unless it's just like this. Actually, these peaches are quite firm. They would probably can all right in water, but I don't have enough of them that I'm going to do that anyway. So I tend to want to let them create their own juices, whether it's by adding sugar or cooking them down, then adding water. But again, that's personal preference, and it depends what you're going to use them for. So, very versatile thing to can fruits. You can use them in just so many ways. I really like galettes or fruit pies or cobblers. Sourdough's always nice, a sourdough cobbler and things like that. So having these on the shelf to be able to do that with at the drop of a hat is nice. Not that we eat a lot of sweets, but the ability to do so, to cook something up if we wanted to, appeals. But the kids would eat the canned fruit straight out of the jar anyway. Like, if we couldn't get fresh fruit, the kids would be more than happy to just eat it straight out of the jar. So it won't go to waste here. So anyway, I'm going to finish pitting all these peaches, and then I'm going to stick them in the same pot that I had the plums in. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar because I want it to be a bit of a syrup for SodaStream or for tea, and maybe a bit of vanilla. Alright, the plums have processed for 30 minutes and have rested for 5, so I'm just going to get them out of the canner. See that the water is a little bit pink, so we may have had some siphoning. So the water's quite pink, so we must have had some siphoning. We'll see how they go sealing. Maybe I needed to leave a little bit more headspace because they obviously have floated a little bit. They maybe needed more heating so that they wouldn't float like that, but they look really pretty, so we will see how they seal and go from there. Alrighty, the peaches was the other thing I did. So the peach concentrate. Now, maybe because I didn't want to add all that lemon juice and sugar, or maybe because the peaches weren't as ripe as they could be, I'm not sure. But normally when I make a peach syrup, I don't puree the fruit into it, and I definitely don't puree the skin into it. I would normally steep it and then smush it through a strainer and get what you get out of it. So this time I pureed everything together like the concentrate recipe said. It's very thick and very textural, which is not going to work for us to add with SodaStream. So I did a test run of adding some to soda water, and it's focusing very well there, but it's full of chunks as you drink it through, and it's just not quite pleasant to drink in that way. But it'll make a really nice sauce or mix through for flavouring the kids' yogurts or in smoothies and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to can it into small jars like I do our jam, and that way we can use it for those purposes. So I had already put it into a large jar because I was just going to put it in the fridge for using with SodaStream and stuff, but as you can see, it's really, really thick. Very much a sauce rather than a syrup or a concentrate, in my opinion. So I'm going to just put it in these small jars and can it for 15 minutes, and then it can go on the shelf to be used as peach sauce or peach flavouring for ice cream or for smoothies or yogurt or whatever else, and it will work really well like that. Alright, I cleaned the rims, lids on, 1/2 inch of headspace, gonna stick them in the steam canner for 15 minutes and get these canned for the shelf. And yeah, it'll probably be used to flavour yogurt, or the kids can have it as a bit like a applesauce, but being peach sauce for over something, or we'll use it for something anyway. And it tastes really nice. It's just not going to work as a concentrate for a drink. This is the barbecue sauce. It's still not quite thick enough for what I want, so I'm going to let it go a little bit longer. But I'll start getting jars and stuff ready for it as well. There we go. Peach, vanilla, jam, I suppose. It's not thick like jam. I don't know. Butter, maybe peach butter, I suppose. So that will be used for flavouring yogurts, or it might be nice on pancakes or something like that as well. So we'll let them sit. Alrighty, so the barbecue sauce is finally reduced to about half. So we've got it here. And hold off with that. So it's thickened up nicely. I'm going to give it a quick go through with the immersion blender just to make sure the last of the chunks are sorted, and then I'm going to get it into these jars. So alrighty, got a ladle. Let's get these jars filled so I can get the last job for the day processed. It's thickened up nicely now. Alrighty, all filled, and I've cleaned the rims as well. Now, with these twist top jars, I have containers underneath my bench here that have brand new lids in it, and they're the ones that I use for the canning. And then once they've been used, they go in another container that's over in the pantry space, which the lids can then be used for if I was, like when I make my syrups and stuff, if I'm not going to refrigerate them, then we reuse the lids for those. So we only use the brand new ones for canning, and I just have a container underneath the counter here that has them sorted by size for the relevant jars. So these are all new lids. These jars are very warm. And we just make sure they're on. The twist, the lug on them, sometimes you have to go round an extra time for it really to catch on the lug. It just doesn't seem to do it, which is just, you get to understand the feel of it as you do it. Do them all up. Alright, I'm going to get these into the canner, and then that's the last canning job for the day. So I'm going to clean this bench up, and then I'll bring you back when I pull them out of the canner and we can have a look at everything. Alrighty, 20 minutes in the canner and the barbecue sauce is ready. And there we go. There you go. So 6 jars, I think they're 250ml jars, those ones, of 250ml, I think so, of the Plum barbecue sauce. Now it's a little spicy, it's quite warm, so I probably toned down the chili for the next batch, but very, very tasty. I still have about half the amount of plums again, so I'm going to have to finish them up tomorrow probably. I also have the 20 kilo bag of onions that need to be made into caramelized onion jam, so plenty more work to go for the moment. It's Kavik's birthday tomorrow, so we'll be doing cake and stuff as well. I'll probably make banana cake since we have bananas. But yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed that and gave you some inspiration for things you can do with fruit, or some information that you didn't know. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and if you want to be notified of more videos coming out, please hit the bell. And I will see you next time, probably in the kitchen, because that's pretty much where I spend my entire life.